Good morning. Look, I must be serious. I'm wearing a collared shirt. I do prefer natural materials, so maybe the content of this video could be kind of serious. Look, I do have some scripting. In fact, this isn't a serious video. It's probably the least on-topic video that I'm going to do, but also in that regard, the best in terms of giving something back. Something practical advice in this video clip for all people, all households, all around the world. So, you know, possibly I'll get more than a handful of viewers. And to be fair, if I'd had more than 4 viewers, I broke all my rules this morning. I checked my tech device as a motivator to go, I wasn't going to do a video. And I'm like, man, if I had 4, I'll do one. And at 3, so I was like, I won't do one. But these are my jam. I guess I enjoy doing them. And wearing non-natural materials is not my norm, so you know, I'd rather wear cottons. And so I figured I'd wear a collared shirt anyway. But I am fatigued. I don't think it's the shirt. I came up with this really elaborate. I put a lot of effort in. I've been up since 4 o'clock, and as you can see, my face is illuminated not from light, but from natural, man-made lights. It's the sun rising beyond my neighbours' houses. It hasn't quite peeked over their roofs yet, so I guess my lighting is such. But you know when I'm recording my videos after 6 o'clock because all the planes start landing, and yeah, we'll get constant landing. Look, my equipment's getting better. I've actually got a microphone stand just off to the left. Haven't been able to get my microphone back. I'm actually possibly going to do a swap with a friend to get maybe their mic, which will go in my mic stand here, maybe really well. So changes they are inbound, they are happening. So look, I'm really fatigued. I wasn't going to do a video today. I really wasn't. I came up with some really elaborate stuff, and thought about running a contest, probably as a way to get my message out there. I mean, my motivation was a little bit selfish. I really want to be able to talk with politicians or talk with people who might be able to, you know, get the ball rolling. And so I thought, well, to that effect, what could I do? And I really elaborately, since 4 o'clock this morning, I've been working, striving. And it's not winter time here in Australia. Our sun is rising in the 6 o'clock hour. But I've put my cat out. It'll probably want to come back in soon. Yeah, to say I'm fatigued is an understatement. And it's all because of all the energy I've just put into a project that I'm just not going to do. And it's not that I didn't want to give the prize package away. It's quite the opposite. It's the energy that it would attract, and the misdirection, if anything, from me putting energy into something that isn't where my heart is. And I just felt there was so much ingenuineness in terms of trying to do something for humanity. I just would rather align with the altruistic and positive people out there, rather than having to buy. And then when you start something with fake energy, you know, like, does it then go on with fake energy? So yeah, look, getting to the meat and potatoes. I did actually have a little bit of message to go with. If it had been a 30-minute video, there would have been, you know, 8 minutes of promotion and that contest that would have taken up some screen time. And it's not that I try to make all my videos run for 30 minutes, so I feel like I'm wasting time now. So let me get into it. Bluetooth and wireless. Okay, so where I said this would be a more practical video, all the other videos on my channel are about raising world peace. I've got a solution for world peace, and look, they've all got that going on. There will be a bit of reference in this video towards the end in terms of, after I give this advice, or a bit of a discussion on things like Bluetooth and wireless, about practical things in terms of my solution for world peace and a rollout in ways that we can actually generate money by looking at these things further, and ways to do that. So meat and potatoes of this video will be practical, everyday stuff. So thank you, everybody. I think we're more than that many minutes in. I could have probably given all of this information just squished down without any anecdotal support or you know, evidence, things to corroborate maybe the information. Bluetooth and wireless. Look, there's a lot about these as a discussion, and I could talk about them across several videos. And due to the wider banning policies at the moment for whatever reasons, commercial reasons, no doubt. I have found any time I've mentioned certain subjects across forums or whatnot across the internet that I'll have no posts ever taken down. And I'll write these really peaceful posts that are really practical for the people of the planet. And they're always taken down within a really, really small amount of time. If certain subjects are contained, and I find that across quite a few different web domains, so I don't think it's specific to any one forum. On a couple of occasions, I'm sure it's because I was off topic to the thread that we were talking about. And I feel this video now is completely off topic to the thread. But look, at the lion's share of my other videos of what's going to carry me forward. This video is, potentially, if you're sifting through them and looking for little nuggets of information, then we might as well share something that's practical and good. And I think it gets back to, if I can show the minutiae of information, that if these things that are practical to me are things that have been in my periphery or understanding, and if I'm trying to come up with a concept for how humanity can live better, and roll out a model for living that's possibly a little bit different to the worldview at the moment, the understanding that some of these things have maybe been investigated or thought about might be practical. That people might wonder, well, what else have they thought about? And maybe water and air quality, or maybe other aspects of health and well-being. So really, why would I talk about Bluetooth and wireless and the concept of health and well-being? And it comes down quite simply to, there has been tests done, and so I'm going to completely avoid talking about mobile phones as much as possible here, because look, studies have been done, and that those studies use genome-perfect mice, and the cancer rates in them were epic, but they were dismissed on the basis that it wasn't what the study was looking into. And these studies were done in the early 80s and paid for by military bodies and whatnot, and the outcomes, for anyone who actually bothers to read through the texts, right? Everyone at the moment just quotes, oh no, studies have been done and the information's inconclusive. Okay, well, you're quoting people who are telling you that. If you go and actually look at the studies and read between the lines, in terms of why they dismiss their findings, it's not relevant to the study that was commissioned, perhaps. That there's really a lot there that suggests, I would say that there's no vested interest to find out information about the ill health of technology rollouts, because technology rollouts generate money, and research and development, if they put all that money down, they have to get their money back. So look, I don't want to be a cynic and say that good information might be intentionally passed over, but from what information, I'm just the same as anyone else on the net. And if I go searching for information, I've got the same resources available to me. And look, if you wonder what's the old saying if you're an optimist, right? So let me just, it's about half, right? So some people say, is it half full? Is it half empty? And someone like myself is a bit of a scientist, and it's not, I didn't coin this, but it's twice the size that it needs to be. So the vesicle that holds that liquid is twice the size it needs to be, and that's a practical way of looking at it. You don't have to look at it from, is it half full or half empty? But yes, I understand the notion of there's optimists and there's pessimists. But when I'm looking at information, I'm looking at it from the point of view of science, and the point of view of practical worth, and always feeding back to humanity and quality of life, I guess is my big one. So, look, I do have a technical background. I do have a modicum of medicine in my background, and to say that I would have looked at the concept of wireless and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in terms of the effect on the human body. Okay, so everyone can talk about non-ionizing radiation. Okay, we can talk about this stuff, but at a base level, and I won't get at the science of it, but there's excitations that before the human race developed all this technology, right, for tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, or a minute, I don't know how long we've been on the planet for, and how long the Earth has actually had life on it versus the length of the universe. But they're all practical, we're statistically insignificant, the life on this planet, versus the size and the length of time the universe has been running for. So let's just say a minute, right? For a minute that the human race has been around for 59.9999999 seconds, we had an excitation in our body at a physiognomy level where it hit a threshold about 3 times in a 24-hour period, right? So our body's developed that way. That's how we operate. And now the excitation rate in modern living, because of all the technology around us and these wireless frequencies, is constant. Let's just say constant, okay? Because our cells don't get a rest state that they've always had. And we can argue about ionising radiation and whatnot, but that's all irrelevant, because the real argument falls back to at night time. That's when our RNA, we hit deep sleep cycles and our RNA checks our DNA, and that's when we heal. And the problem is we don't get that state anymore, because we're bathed in all sorts of frequencies. Okay, and so anyone out there that wants to be a better scientist than me, who says that they've done more research than me and wants to tell me off and say I don't know what I'm talking about, yeah, fine. You do you, but I'll do me. And yeah, I've been quite interested in this stuff, and not from the point of view of being an optimist or a pessimist, but the glass is twice the size it needs to be. So let me just say a couple of things. Blood-brain barrier in children isn't developed, and the notion of what's probably better for children in terms of Bluetooth might be over-ear designs rather than in-ear designs, and neckband designs. Okay, now the reason a neckband design can be better is that the antenna chips can be larger, which means they don't have to run so much power through them, and that from bone reflects radio signals, whereas adipose tissue, fat tissue, absorbs it. So generally, if you do have to put a phone on your body, maybe near bone is better because it reflects away. But the problem with our heads is that we have an ear canal, which is for all of the skull. The ear canal is essentially the one section where we can kind of let these frequencies get straight into our head. So the notion of having 2 multi-point Bluetooth buds in the ears of children, just absolutely not. Don't do it. They have a still developing blood-brain barrier, and they don't have the same physiognomy as adults. So any study or any research that's ever been done, we're not allowed to test on children. We're not allowed to. We shouldn't really, anyway. And again, nobody's commissioning this stuff. So there are no results that are practical worth for us to quote. But it's fair to say that 250 doctors were approaching the World Health Organization, I think it was last year, trying to get some standards put in play, because manufacturers and the need to constantly release products that are bigger, new and improved. I'll have to quote Garfield, new and improved. I like the old and inferior, but the new and improved ones need to have more range. And it's a sales point. So these manufacturers keep approaching the government regulating bodies and sort of say, can we push for more range? Bluetooth 30 feet, no, give us 300 feet, And so, look, I'm a big fan of, rather than having a mobile phone against your head, do have Bluetooth, because Bluetooth has like a 10-metre range or a 30 feet range. And I'm sorry, I'm the metric system. So like our mobile phones will connect like 10 kilometres. They'll triangulate off various towers. They'll try to hit 2 or 3 towers. Great range. And so putting that up against your head is an ideal. And the US government changed their laws regarding the directionality of antennas. I think that opened up an extra band on GPS and chips, and they didn't need, in order to check where people were, they didn't need the phones to necessarily fire out in both directions. Sorry, no. The reasons, the reasons were digital hearing aids. Because too much radio frequency noise coming through the front of the phone would maybe play up with the digital hearing aid. So anyway, whatever happened, the relaxed standards came about around about 2000, and none of the phone manufacturers chose to use the single-facing direction, the antennas that would fire out, say, through the rear of the phone. And the consensus is that if they had done so, that would be like acknowledging that they kind of know that this isn't ideal. So Samsung did, and you'll generally find if you pick up a Samsung Note and look at the SAR ratings on it, that you'll realise that you can be on that phone for nearly 10 minutes, somewhere like 6 to 10 minutes to be equivalent to like 1 minute of time on most other common phones sold. And we certainly need to raise awareness in phone manufacturers that it's probably better to just, probably fire less radiation through the bodies of the people that are next to them, and But anyway, trying to avoid phones altogether. The only last thing I'll say on phones, because I really want to talk about wireless and Bluetooth. But yeah, you should be using Bluetooth because it means you don't have to have your phone near you. But regarding phones, what I've found is that with the rollout of the latest phone networks, at the time of making this video, the frequency with which they run at, and the notion of being in a high-speed metal carriage. Okay, so it's always been good advice when you're on a mobile phone that you're not in a high-speed metal carriage, because that's when it has a hard time maintaining reception to the multiple cell phone towers at major distances away. And so because the antenna signal is poor, or the reception is hard because you're in a metal carriage moving at high speed, generally it ramps its power up to the antenna chip, and that's generally when the SAR rating goes up. So the idea is that you pull your car over and you get out and you walk around in free airspace, ideally line of sight to a tower. That'd be great. But none of us do this. Now, in the modern world, I find when I get on a train, because all the phone networks are giving so much data, now everyone streams their TV services on their phone while they're commuting in the peak hour traffic. And it's the peak hour trains in particular, I get very, very nauseous. Now, I'm not very sensitive to many things. You know, I have a partner that if they're wearing non-natural fabrics, that might bring about a rash, you know. And I actually think all the people who are sensitive to all these things in life, that's actually a good thing, because, you know, your body's giving you feedback. It's meaningful. But for me, in a modern train, I find during peak hour, I get very, very nauseous if everybody around me is streaming high-speed data. Basically, they're watching TV and whatnot. And look, basically, as soon as we go above about 80 kilometres an hour, which is kind of fast on that metric system, I wouldn't know the equivalent. It would be less than 50 miles, I imagine. So, yeah, as soon as it goes high speed and it's a metal carriage, everybody's antenna chips need more power, especially because they're streaming videos, so there's lots of data needed. And we're all saturating ourselves, bathing, if you will, in really lots of radio frequency. And look, whether governments around the world need to make the first train carriage of every train be RF free, or not high speed data, so no streaming of TV or something, and just allow children to travel in those carriages on their way to and from school, or you know, I feel more for the train conductor or the driver, because their job is for 8 hours. You know, for 8 hours they're bathing in, you know, really high levels needlessly. So yeah, maybe make the front carriage of every train around the planet just a wireless free zone. But look, so the necessary evil is Bluetooth. Bluetooth's great because we don't have to have our phone up against our head. So I've already mentioned that neckband designs are probably ideal in that they move the critical antenna chip away from the ear canal holes, and also because of the fact that they can have either a bigger battery but more so a bigger antenna chip, they don't have to ramp so much power through it. So that might be the ideal way for technology in that regard. And it's really convenient when you're done just to drop the buds down and let them hang. But I'm a big fan of Bluetooth. I guess the other idea would be maybe over-ear designs, because potentially the antenna chips can again have bigger antennas and be possibly further from the ear, or maybe not directly aligned with the hole into our heads where there's no bone. But wireless is the one I want to talk about, because a couple of years ago I was in an apartment, and look, we had cell towers on the top of that building, and we could tell at the time of day when they would ramp up into high power mode. Everyone, well, my whole family independently all sit bolt upright in our beds at the time of day when they would ramp the power up for the commuters, because I think we had a couple of highways intersecting at the corner of our apartments, and yeah, as more and more traffic was coming through the area, early in the morning, they would just ramp the power up. And that's part of my advice I'm about to give right now, is that at night time we might not need to run all of our devices at high power mode. So yeah, talking about products, we're not motivated to power them down at night. In fact, generally when you turn your Wi-Fi router on, you'll find that it puts out 3 or 4 networks. In our country, one of the major phone telcos lets people piggyback off your router, and so they put out one network. And then there's another company that allows you to sell data, and then they want you to put out a network. And then generally you've got 2 bands. Usually you've got the 5 gigahertz band, because 2.4 is getting too crowded, and 2.4. And this is what I was going to say about in an apartment living. There's so much wireless devices. Everyone's toothbrush and fans and sprinkler systems, but that's not so much for apartment living. Lights, all the things that are probably vacuum cleaners. Everything's wireless nowadays. And I found that my mouse, which I'd been using for years, couldn't connect one foot, 30 odd centimetres. It was unable to consistently work because there was so much wireless frequency. We're in a corner apartment with no other buildings around us, so we probably had less, and certainly every year the amount of devices with wireless in them just goes up and up and up. So there are things we can be doing to lessen the rate that we're bathing in this stuff. And so generally turning off any networks that we don't need, turning them down to a power level. I've always turned mine down. This is going back 15 years, 20 years. I've always turned my networks down to the lowest power level needed to serve the property that we're on. Now, people are going to complain about that when I go, oh, no, I need high speed. And the problem is, and I give the example of apartment living, everybody needing high speed, thinking that they need lots and lots of power pushing out, means that everybody else is bathing in everybody else's wireless network and not being able to use it, and hidden networks, you can't even see those ones. We've got no idea how much radio frequency is beaming through the air. And so if we all are a little bit more responsible and just taper down our range to cover the area that we need it to cover, because there'll be so many, and if everybody else was to do that, whoa, social conscience, then there'd be so much less radio frequency and everything would work better. And I give the example, if you walk through a capital city and you're trying to get really high quality music streamed to your Bluetooth headphones, that they trip over themselves, they fall back. And that's actually to a lesser quality level. And so we see that with one technology that pushes about 990 kilobits per second as its high-res state. But some codecs, and I'll give it aptX high def as an example, it uses a bit better, it's a more clever compression, and actually achieves equal quality at about 600 kilobits per second to what others do for 50% more, around about 990 or 900. And what you'll find is that in capital city areas, you might still be able to sustain around about 600. And so the sound quality improvements are quite massive, sometimes if you choose a more efficient codec for your Bluetooth headsets. But yeah, there's so much radio frequency going on that you try and stream high-res music in a capital city area, you just won't. It'll fall back to a lesser range. So look, there's a few things we can do. One is we turn off any networks we don't need. The best thing we can do is to move to wired networks as much as possible. Okay, so if your TV streaming, it's not like that product's moving, it doesn't need to be wireless. And if it's at the opposite end of your house to where your router is, that's fine. You can get power line network adapters. And so your office supply stores will probably have them. They just allow you to use the earth pin in your power lines around the house to move as an Ethernet or a wired network. And so you're going to get much better TV performance. You're going to get a faster, quite often when we start streaming network TV, it quickly adapts to the speed and then the quality level improves. But a wired network is always going to be generally more reliable, more consistently better quality. But it also means that you don't have to move lots and lots and lots of data wirelessly. So look, I recommend that, especially to the bedrooms around the house and stuff. I've got about 3 or 4 probably in the house I'm in. And then I run routers off some points there so I can feed every device in the lounge room, even though it's not near the router. So they put it in the bedroom in this house for some reason. We've got fibre to the node. So yes, we have wired internet. And all the research and studies on the internet basically say we should be using wired network, and wireless should just be supplemental data. And the problem is that it's really cheap for companies to roll out wireless internet, and so everybody wants wireless, and they kind of make it cheaper. But you're doing yourself, you're doing your neighbours a favour, you're doing everyone a favour when you go wired. But some countries like mine, I'm pretty sure they want to pull up all the copper from the phone lines, so they've been deprecating the copper line service for so long. And our major telco player could easily overnight make it so that everybody can use wired net. They just, it looks like they're trying to privatise or make money, and at some point they've probably got their eyes on all the copper they've got in the ground, so they've been desperately moving everyone over to wireless. But look, wired is for the win. But if you do have to go wireless, you can turn off a lot of networks that you don't need, or bands that you don't need. You can drop the power levels right down so that it's affecting, so that you can reach in your house or your area. And And it's easy to do a speed test. You can drop your power level down and then check your speed test, and is it still working? Look, if I'm talking about technical stuff that's beyond you, my apologies, but I assure you, on the bottom of your wireless router, there'll probably be some numbers. It'll be an IP address you can log into as an admin to your router, and you can actually set up some settings for it. And in there's usually some transmission power levels. You can usually drop them down or turn off any networks that you don't need. So look, the other one is you can quite often, a lot of the technology you can schedule to turn off at night time. And that's a really handy thing. I actually, last night I was on the net, and about 10 minutes before the auto switch off time. Maybe I've got an autopilot with it, but I just know to stop using it. And it's bedtime. It's more than an hour past my bedtime, and then the wireless just turns off. It turns on again in the morning when the household might need it. And for all those hours that we're sleeping, we don't have to bathe needlessly in wireless devices, so that our fans and our lights can all talk rather pointlessly to the network. So yeah, maybe set your router to turn off at night time. Okay, so look, I've given a pretty big talk there. The problem is that all these companies are motivated for the competitive edge, so there's no governing bodies really. There is, but everyone, governments make taxation, everyone wants to sell new products. There's generally a push for new technology. So how does this all tie into my vision for world peace and this notion of me rolling out a model? Okay, well, I've mentioned quite a few times that people get to elect what they want to do in terms of their living environment and whatnot. So some people might want a lot less wireless in their lives, some people might want none at all. And there's ways we can give them a wide infrastructure. And we had that for countless decades. So it can be done. But I'd like to think that just some of the statistics, if people opt into letting us gather statistics, it would be nice to learn a little bit about, if one valley, so if we build communities intelligently, that some areas would be built to be very, wireless happy, and other areas would be built with none available. And I believe the science data that we'd be gathering over a small amount of time would be something that's never been studied en masse, and something that the modern world just can't do because of the fact that we all mishmash together. And you can't help it if your neighbours want 500 wireless devices in their house. Heck, they probably can't help it now. You can't buy a toothbrush that's electric just about that doesn't have the ability to talk to your phone and give you, are you getting all the areas of your gums and whatnot. So there's this need for technology to constantly improve and evolve. We don't have any measurement data on it. Nobody's interested in creating that data, but I am, and I think it'd be valuable. And it's just one of those many things that connected to this vision for a rollout, a model, if you will, a test model for around the world. But this data would be collected over decades. That's the whole point. Is that a lot of this notion that we're a 5-minute society and we're only living in the here and now. No, we borrow this planet from our children. We've got to have something to hand on to them. And once we stop needing to make commercial interests viable and company A trying to beat company B in the market, once we take all that away from the needs, we need commercials, we need evolution of products, sure, but there's lots of ways to have evolution of products. There's lots of ways to meet the people's needs, and so some of those other things I'd like to talk about maybe across other videos. In fact, maybe I already have. But look, for this video today, I understand we've sort of covered nothing practical in terms of bringing about world peace. But maybe we've covered some practical things about rethinking how we currently live on the planet, and maybe practical changes for your family or for your friends, for your home, that might change up the way that you live. And look, obviously there's new guidance for YouTube in terms of what you're allowed to talk about and whatnot. So, I'm just trying to be practical. My idea's there towards making the front carriage of a train maybe high-speed data free. Maybe that could be a carriage where the children of the train travel. If it's anything like planes, they say that the safest area is at the back. But if you maybe it's the last. No jokes needed. But yeah, look, whatever we're doing, I think a little bit of conscientiousness towards living consciously, living with neighbours, living in a society would do us all wonders. Anyway, I feel that as I said, I'm totally fatigued this morning. I was going to run a big old contest, and the energy all attached to that, I could just feel all the ways that I could be played, or that there'd be negative energy, and I just didn't want to divide my energy. And so, look, I have divided my energy. I've given us something to talk about. It's practical for today. Look, I just want to wish everyone really well. Obviously,